My siblings received luxurious gifts, and I got a bar of soap for our birthdays, but now I'm moving out and everything is falling apart. I'm 25, female, and I live with my parents. I have two siblings, Joseph and Katrina. As the eldest, I was the first to start working. For a long time, it was just my father and I working to support the family. My mother was either sick or too tired to work. Over the years, I've noticed that her illness is self-induced. She prefers to spend the whole day sitting on the couch watching TV and eating junk food instead of working. I gave up trying to get her to work a long time ago. My brother and sister started working shortly after finishing school. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep their jobs for long. My brother was a thief, and my sister blamed her mental health for not being able to perform her job. The small financial relief we had when they started working didn't last long. Eventually, I had to work extra shifts, knowing I couldn't count on them. I worked very hard to get a better position at my company. Now I earn more money than everyone in my age group. Many people congratulate me on my success, but I feel like an imposter. When I look back, I haven't really done anything for myself. 70% of my salary goes towards household bills, and I'm left with only 30%. I can't do much with that amount each month, besides covering my basic needs. Besides that, there are always extra expenses at the end of the month that I have to cover. I work so much that I'm barely home, and when I am home, it's hell. That's the problem. It's exhausting, but at least I get paid for my work. At home, no one pays me for taking care of the house. I have to clean, do laundry, wash dishes, and make sure there are enough groceries. My mother and sister hardly do anything. My mother spends all day watching television, while my sister spends her days locked in her room. She only goes out to hang out with her friends and get into trouble. I can't ask my father or brother for help because they believe in gender roles. That's the kind of family I come from. And even though I don't agree with those ideas, I have no choice. I always believed I had no choice, since I was living in their house. Every time I tried to say something against them, my mother told me to find my own place to live. She knows I can't afford my own place and still support the family. She also knows my heart is too soft to let the family fend for themselves, or so she thinks. You know, all of this isn't the reason I'm writing this post, nor is it the reason I'm so frustrated. The reason I'm frustrated is that, once again, my parents have shown that they love my siblings more than me. It was my birthday 2 days ago, and guess what I got as a gift? Body soap, that's it, just body soap. You must be wondering why I sound so ungrateful about the gift. That's because last month was Katrina's birthday, and she had a big surprise party that we couldn't afford. I had to take on extra consulting jobs to help pay for it. This was after my father claimed he had the money for the party when I initially refused. After the party, he came to me with a sad story about how he had miscalculated. He also told me he had borrowed money from some very dangerous people and was afraid they would come and hurt us. Wanting to protect my family, I agreed to pay for the party. I was extremely disappointed because they always do this. Whether it's holidays or birthdays, they always put more effort into my siblings' gifts, not mine. This year, my brother got a new video game console as a gift, while my sister got a voucher for the most expensive spa in our town. And I got a bar of soap. After everything I've done for this family, is that all I deserve? I don't know why, but this time I felt so hurt, and I still do. Every time this has happened, I found a way to get over it. I told myself they didn't mean any harm. I told myself they loved and appreciated me. But I think it's time I stopped lying to myself. That bar of soap was the last straw. After receiving it, I snapped. I couldn't control myself. I had a huge lump in my throat, and anger completely consumed me. I asked them why I couldn't have a big party like Katrina or Joseph. All I got was some body soap, not even a decent cake. My dad immediately got angry and asked me why I was so ungrateful, since I knew their financial situation. At that moment, I started laughing and asked him how he could say all that with a straight face. Was he the one who went into debt just to make sure Katrina had a memorable birthday party, and he couldn't spend more than $20 on mine? I was getting tired of being treated differently. At that point, I even had to ask him if I was adopted. Is that why they treated me like an outsider? I work my hardest, come home, and take care of everyone, and all I get is some body soap? They must be joking. My mother started crying and said she hated it when I had these little outbursts, so it's okay for her to have emotions, but as soon as I dare to show mine, I'm being inconsiderate to the family. That's exactly what I got from her comment. She has 100 different moods throughout the day, and we're supposed to accept them. But if I get upset about something valid, I'm called dramatic. Fine, I decided to stop arguing and went to my room. When they tried to call me, I pretended to be asleep. The whole time I was sitting there, I was just thinking, I've been so unhappy even though I keep myself busy all the time. When it's time to sleep, I can't. My thoughts keep circling around how unhappy I am. Most people my age are buying their first car, some are getting married or even buying houses. I see some of them at the company doing exactly that. And even though they make less than me, I'm jealous. Despite being ahead in my career, I'm so behind in life. I don't own anything in this world, and I have no purpose. The only purpose I have is to serve these ungrateful people. Now that I think about it, how could I have let them treat me like this? It's been going on for so long that I didn't even realize they were using me. My feelings about this whole matter have become very clear because of the incident with my birthday gift. Now, I realize that I don't want things to stay this way forever. Something has to change. I feel like I'm not doing anything with my life, and I want to know what I can do to change everything, to have a purpose of my own. Update 1. I did it. 2 months since my original post, I moved out. I can't believe that just 2 months after the birthday incident, I finally moved out. My apartment is very small and has hardly any furniture, but at least it's mine. Do you want to know the first thing I did as soon as I finished moving in? I relaxed in my bed for hours with no one calling me to fix any little problem. It was such a strange feeling. I never knew that just lying in a bed could be so cathartic. You're probably wondering how I managed to move out, especially with such a controlling family. It wasn't easy, but I did it. First, I followed their advice and started setting boundaries. I only paid the bare minimum for expenses and saved the rest of my money. I also took extra shifts at work and kept the money. When my parents asked about the money, I told them it would be included in my year-end bonus. It was hard, but as soon as I had enough for the deposit, I told them, "Sayonara, fools," and moved into my new apartment. Once I decided which apartment to rent, I told my parents I was moving out. It wasn't a pleasant conversation. They were incredibly upset and asked me if living with them was so bad. I told them it wasn't about them, it was about me. I was getting older and needed to be more independent. I couldn't do that if I kept living with them. Besides, my mom had always told me to get my own place. Of course, my mother took offense to my comment and called it sarcastic. She claimed she only wanted what was best for me, but that I was mocking everything she said. I knew I couldn't win that argument, so I apologized and moved on. My decision to move was met with a lot of resistance from the family, but in the end, there was nothing they could do about it. I had already signed my lease and was ready to move. In protest, none of them helped me pack. I had to ask some friends from work for help. Janet and Lisa, 2 friends from different departments at work, were the only ones who knew about my situation at home. When I told them I was moving, they were so happy. They literally jumped for joy. When I asked them for help with moving, they were more than happy to help. A couple of days ago, we finished moving everything, and now I'm here in my almost empty apartment. I don't have much, but at least I'm happy. I can't wait to start living for myself. Update 2. I've been living in my apartment for over a month now. It's been a challenging month, but I'm happier than ever, or at least I was happy until a few hours ago. Let me quickly tell you what happened. For the past month, I've been furnishing my apartment and even had a housewarming party. Plus, I've had free evenings, so I've started going out with my friends and even meeting new people through them. It feels so good to finally have a social life after so long without one. Honestly, I feel like I'm finally living for myself. Besides building a social life, I've been dating someone that Lisa introduced me to. In the past, I never dated anyone because I didn't have the time. My family always interrupted my plans with some emergency or something. But now that I live further away, they can't do that anymore. You're probably wondering what my relationship with my family has been like over the past month. Well, honestly, none of them have texted me at all this entire time. They've been disturbingly quiet, which has been unsettling at times. I've thought about texting them, but I stopped myself. I feel like I'm always the one to break the ice and apologize after our arguments. I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to be respected, like any other family member. So I decided not to reach out, and for a while, I thought our relationship was over. That was until my mom called me this afternoon while I was at work. I was so surprised to see her name on the screen, but I answered. As soon as I answered, she asked, "Where's the check?" At first, I was confused because I didn't know what check she was talking about. Had he forgotten that I no longer lived with them? Come on, what was he thinking? Anyway, he asked me how I expected them to manage without my help. I reminded him that he has 2 healthy, capable children who could help with the bills. They've had a whole month to look for jobs. What have they been doing all this time? Then he asked me how I could be so insensitive to my siblings' situation. So I asked him how I could have any sympathy for a thief and a lazy girl. They ruined their own job opportunities. Couldn't they learn from me and persevere? I told my mother I wasn't going to send them anything and that they had to make their own plans. Then I hung up. She called me several more times, but I didn't answer. Later, my father called and tried to lecture me, but I hung up again. I couldn't believe I did it. I had never hung up on them like that before. But honestly, this last month has been so peaceful, and being back in contact with them has made me realize how chaotic my life used to be. I don't think I want to disturb my peace by bringing them back into my life. I wish they had just stayed silent. They should have cut me off and left me alone, because I've never really been part of the family anyway. Now it's clear to me that they only wanted me around as long as I could provide. I lived an unsustainable lifestyle because I was always the one supporting them, but that's over now. I've reached my limit. It's time for me to focus on myself. I should have done that a long time ago. They've tried to make me feel guilty, but it's not working. I think it's because I'm finally immune to it. Update 3. Honestly, I don't know what's going on with my family. I can't believe I'm related to such crazy people. I knew they were capable of doing extreme things to get what they wanted, but this is too much. I'm not going to be lenient with them after this. They're going to see a side of me they never knew existed. It's been 2 days since my family started harassing me for money. I've repeatedly told them I'm not giving them a single penny. They need to make their own plans if they can't pay their bills. How can they expect me to still have money to support them when I have my own expenses? It's completely irresponsible and unreasonable. I've been ignoring them for the last 24 hours, focusing on buying more furniture for my apartment. It's finally starting to look like a home, and I'm so proud of myself. I can't believe I finally have things that I can call my own. Unfortunately, I can't fully enjoy this accomplishment because they've been so annoying. I've ignored them the whole time, which is probably why they decided to show up at my place. Yes, they showed up at my apartment last night while I was having a small get-together. So here's what happened. Yesterday was Friday night, and a couple of my friends wanted to go out, but I was too tired. Lisa and Janet felt the same way, so we suggested having a book and wine night at my place. 2 other girls joined us, and we were having a really fun time, until there was a commotion outside the door. I live in a quiet apartment complex, so this was alarming. We tried to ignore it, but it got louder and finally came to my door. When I opened it, my sister, my dad, and my brother were arguing with the building manager. They were demanding to be let into my apartment because they were family. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I told the manager that I knew them, but they weren't welcome. My dad looked hurt and said he just wanted to talk. I asked him to look at the time. It was 10 o'clock at night. I told them that if they wanted to see me, they could have called first. Besides, how on earth did they even know where I lived? That's when my sister piped in, saying she found out from a friend who had seen me in the complex. Then she started looking around and commented that I was living large. She asked me why I couldn't let her move in with me. I looked at her like she was crazy. Why would I want to live with someone so lazy? I wouldn't only have to feed her, but also clean up after her. I haven't forgotten the dynamics of the past few years. I told them to leave because they weren't welcome, especially at that hour. My dad refused and said they wouldn't leave until I talked to them. I told him I had no interest in talking, especially since I had guests. Then my brother started yelling at the top of his lungs, addressing my friends and telling them that I was a useless sister. Then he pushed his way into my apartment and started verbally attacking me. With him, my sister, and my dad there, I felt overwhelmed. Meanwhile, my friends were sitting there in shock, witnessing this horrific scene. And it got worse. My father and brother started rummaging through my things and flipping them over. Seeing them treat my belongings with such disrespect made me cry. I begged them to stop, but they wouldn't listen. They said I had caused this and that they wouldn't leave without a check. That was until security arrived. It turns out Janet called security as soon as my father and brother started causing a disturbance. When security arrived, both my father and brother refused to leave and even tried to resist. That was a big mistake because the commotion was so loud that they had to call the police. As of today, my father and brother are in jail for trespassing and disturbing the peace. They won't be out until Monday, and I've already filed charges. I'm taking them to court for this. They have crossed a huge line, and I'm not going to be lenient with them. This is it. They've gone too far, and I'm not going to let them drag me into their mess anymore. Update 4. I really wanted to post an update sooner. Since 4 months have passed, but I decided to wait until everything was settled. Now that the trial is over, I can finally tell you everything. I think many of you will be happy to know that my family got what they deserved. Starting with my brother, because of his previous shoplifting incident, the judge wasn't lenient with him since he's a repeat offender. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison. Unfortunately, this will be on his record, which will make it even harder for him to build a future for himself. But honestly, the way he's been living his life, he already had very few chances. I hope the time in jail will straighten him out and help him get his priorities straight. I've seen people much younger than him with lives that are much more together than his. As for my father, he had to pay a fine to the court and is now on probation. If he gets even a single traffic ticket, that's it for him. He has to be extremely careful for a while, otherwise he'll end up in jail. The judge and the city take these offenses very seriously, so both of them have faced these consequences. Now about my mother. Her years of overeating and inactivity have finally caught up with her. She is at serious risk of heart disease due to her unhealthy lifestyle. If she doesn't make some drastic changes, the doctors say she has less than 2 years left, given how quickly her health is deteriorating. Knowing her, she probably won't care. She thinks she'll live forever. I've tried to get her to eat healthier for years, but she never listened, and I eventually gave up. If high cholesterol doesn't kill her, my sister probably will. Speaking of my sister, she's been the talk of the town lately, and not in a good way. Since money has been tight and no one is funding her lifestyle anymore, she decided to take matters into her own hands. Somehow, she got involved with the wrong crowd, girls who are rumored to be selling drugs on the street corner. It's both illegal and extremely dangerous. About a week ago, I heard she was arrested after being caught doing something suspicious. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up in a dangerous situation soon because of the path she's taken. People have been asking me to talk to her, but she chose this life. Honestly, she probably thinks I'm stupid for having an honest job. No offense to anyone in that field, but I've seen what some of these girls go through. There's no happy ending in sight for her, only substance abuse, more time in jail, and dangerous situations. Since Katrina started down this path, my mom has had several breakdowns from the stress. But Katrina still lives with our parents. So in a way, they're enabling her behavior by letting her stay there. Even though she's making money, she clearly isn't using it responsibly or paying the bills. You're probably wondering how I know all this. I heard it from a reliable source. Apparently, my parents are now receiving food stamps, and my dad's hours at work have been cut, so he spends most of his time at home with my mom and Katrina. I can only imagine how hard things must be for them at home right now. But that's not all, because in addition to everything else they're dealing with, they still have to pay for the damage Katrina caused to my apartment. I've gotten my stuff back, but she still owes the money the judge ordered. I feel sorry for them, but not enough to intervene and help. That's just the way it is. They made their choices, and now they have to live with the consequences. Update 5. I have an update with several things that have happened recently. And the truth is that my family continues to sink deeper and deeper into the problems that, as I often say, they themselves have created. They are the kind of people who like to dig themselves deeper into the hole. I don't know if there's any way back for them, but what I do know is that it's not my responsibility to pull them out of the holes they themselves have dug and are making ever deeper. To begin with, my father, who was supposed to pay for the damage he and my brother caused to my apartment, simply didn't do it. Many of the comments I received on my last update predicted that this would happen, and they were right. The saddest thing is that this time he didn't even try. Not a single effort to show that he was willing to comply with what the judge ordered. But of course, the judge was also right when he warned him that any infraction would be enough to send him back to jail. A sneeze and he could be sent to jail. And that's what happened. It wasn't a literal sneeze, but failing to pay what he was ordered to pay earned him a trip to jail. I found out a few days ago that he is currently serving time there. The irony of it all is that my father was the only one who, supposedly, worked in that house. Now that he's behind bars, I have no idea how my mother is going to manage on her own. The last time I spoke with someone close to the family, they told me there was barely any food in the house. And considering my mother's health problems, that is more than worrying. But to be honest, I can't feel anything but cold detachment towards all of this. For years, I was the one who kept that house afloat, and they emotionally and financially exploited me. Now they are facing the consequences of their own irresponsibility. My mother is also alone at home, not only because my father was imprisoned, but because my brother and sister are now behind bars as well. My brother had been in prison for some time, as you may recall, but now my sister has joined him. Yes, her business venture, so to speak, ended exactly as expected, with her being arrested. Everyone saw it coming except her. Her situation became even more chaotic when she started using drugs, in addition to selling them, which made her even more vulnerable and left her with virtually no ability to make sound judgments. An undercover officer caught her in the act, and that was the end of her attempt to maintain an unsustainable lifestyle. She's now awaiting trial. But honestly, I don't think she's going to get off lightly. The worst part is that she can't even afford a decent lawyer, so she's stuck with a public defender. I don't mean to sound harsh, but I don't see much hope for her. As for my mother, I honestly don't know what will become of her life now. She lives in that house, which once was full of 5 people, and now she's completely alone. With my father in prison, my sister awaiting trial, and my brother already serving his sentence, the house has become empty, and the worst part is that she has absolutely no one to take care of her. For years, she did nothing but depend on everyone else to bring her money and food, and now, because of her health problems, she can hardly leave the house. I don't know how she's going to survive. I know they're getting food stamps, but that's not enough to live on. In short, my family has completely fallen apart. The only thing I have left is my peace of mind, and as harsh as it may sound, I don't regret having distanced myself. Update 6. I feel bad for being the bearer of bad news, but at least it's not my bad news anymore. It's my family's. And while everything that's happening is a kind of slow-motion tragedy, I can't help but feel a certain relief at not being directly involved in this mess. For starters, I finally got my money back. It wasn't an easy process, and as expected, my father didn't have the means to pay me. The only reason he finally did was because my mother had to take out a loan so he could get out of jail. The fact that my father was in prison for contempt of court complicated everything even further. But in the end, after a lot of effort, she got the money. It wasn't her own initiative, of course, but rather my mother's desperation to get my father out of jail. But my father being out of jail is perhaps the only positive thing about this whole situation. During all this time, my mother has been living with a relative while trying to sort out my father's legal problems. She left the house for a long time, and as expected, the house was left empty. Now, the neighborhood we live in wasn't the best to begin with, especially for leaving a house unattended. Apparently, it's been completely vandalized and ransacked. What's most disturbing is that, from what I've heard, there are people living there now. People who, as I understand it, might be former clients of my sister. The fact that there are squatters in the house is just the beginning of the problem. Even if my parents manage to evict them, which I doubt will be easy, I don't know if what's left of the house can even be considered a home anymore. It pains me to imagine the state that my former home must be in, especially since I invested so much time and effort into maintaining it when I lived there. But at the end of the day, it's not my house anymore, it's not in my name, and frankly, it's not my problem to solve. That's something my parents will have to deal with themselves. As for my siblings, they're still serving their sentences. Nothing much has changed on that front. What surprises me most about all of this is how quickly things deteriorated after I left. It's as if my departure was the final nail in the coffin of a situation that was already rotten to the core.